Hello everybody! This is Tia Woodward from Stamp with Tia, and I'm here today to do a demonstration for you in celebration of our new annual catalog, the 2022 through 2023. I am so excited. It's an absolutely gorgeous catalog. You see all these tabs that I have on here? Those are all projects I've already got planned for the year. Oh my gosh, my mind is just exploding. Well, let's get started. So today I'm going to demonstrate for you some techniques on using multiple colors of ink on the same stamp. And to do that, I'm going to use Wisteria Wishes and Mountain Air. Mountain Air is on page 95 of the new annual catalog. This is a carryover stamp set. And I'm using Wisteria Wishes, which is brand new. That's on page 92, so they're just a few pages apart from each other. Let me move these out of the way and pull this up a little closer for you to see. So here I've used the stamp set, I've used some of the dies, and I've used multiple techniques for applying color to this card. I can't wait to share all of this with you. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to jump right in. Set that right there. Goodness gracious, there's a massive rainstorm coming through. All right. So this piece of paper that I'm going to do all this stamping and ink application on is 3 by 5 inches. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to apply some ink to the sky and some ink to the foreground. And how I'm going to do that is, you may have noticed that I had these little clouds in here. I did that. I cut this from the basic Borders dies, and then I used a blending brush. So you can see this is the Balmy Blue from my previous application. So that I'm going to do the exact same thing again. And I know that I need to come down to about the halfway mark. So I'm going to just use my blending brush. I'm going to pull up just a little bit of ink, and I'm going to knock a little bit of that ink off. Any abrupt appearance I don't want to show up on here. See, I need to find my middle mark again. So right around here is middle. There will be a overlap between the sky and the mountains, but the mountains are dark enough that you're not going to see it. So I'm going to knock some of that dye off, and I'm just going to come in here and apply some of that ink. And it's really hard to see, isn't it? Because I'm applying it very lightly. But when I pull that away, then you can see it. I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to actually tilt it to one side a little bit to create a different angle. I'm trying to not have it be matchy-matchy all the way up. So again, going to knock some of that ink off. And I found this to work best if I start from the bottom. Look at how pretty that is already. And I'm going to flip that over again, and let's see. See, I've got this right here, so I want to make sure I'm not coming straight up, right? So I want to make sure I'm doing some sort of an angle. And let's see. It's going to be different absolutely every time. This one, I could see that the ink is a little bit darker. I picked up more than I did the previous 2 times, so I want to be careful. And I'm just doing a circular motion to get into those crevices, to capture some of those details. And look at that, our sky is already done. move this aside. So this, again, this shape came from our Borders dies. If I would have been thinking, I would have looked up that page number for you. This did carry over into the annual catalog. So you will be able to find this towards the back of the catalog under the dies section. Basic Borders dies. All right, I can set that aside, and I'm going to pull in my Orchid Oasis, which is one of the new in colors. Both Starry Sky and Orchid Oasis are 2 of the 5 new in colors. So I'm going to just pull up a little bit of ink. These are very, very inky. So I'm going to start over here, knock some of the harshness off, and I'm just going to come in here and apply to my foreground. And the reason I'm doing that is, and you'll see this when I get to stamping, the stamp that I'm using doesn't cover the entire foreground. All right, and that's pretty good. Doesn't need to be even, it can be blotchy. All right, next I am going to stamp the mountains. Now, I had to do quite a bit of experimentation to get this just right. And I see I've got a little bit of a flubby here. There we go, got that out. Didn't want that showing up on an ink pad. All right, I've pre-mounted this just to make things go just a little bit faster. Now, when I first stamp this, you will see these clouds through, but when I show you how to fill in the mountains, anything that you can see through is going to hide. So I'm going to apply my ink, and it looks like I'm missing some spots, so I'm going to come back in. It's really inky. See how juicy that is? Ooh, and you see these auras that I have here? I'm going to grab my chamois, and I'm just going to wipe those off. I don't want to take a chance of any of that transferring over to the cardstock that I have already worked on. All right. And this is going to go right about there. And I am going to, oh, see, I just stuck that corner right in there again. Need to be more mindful of what I'm doing. I am going to just stick another little mountain right there. I just wanted to fill in that corner. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Man, I'm being very, very messy. And I just need a little bit of a mountain to come over that edge. There we go. See, I'm already getting ink all over my hands. All right, so one of the beautiful things about this particular stamp set, and that is the Mountain Air stamp set, is that these are reversible. And so you take the exact same stamp, you turn it over, and you ink that up and you fill in the color. But if I were to do that, you see how dark this is. I would lose all of that detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp off. So trying to, I think I'm going to move this closer to me, looking in the camera. Yes, you can see. Okay. I'm going to stamp off up here, and then I'm going to apply my ink. So here we go. Stamp off. Look at all that excess I just got rid of. And now I'm going to line these up, and they don't line up perfect, and that's okay. See how beautiful that is? Now I need to do that again. Now I'm okay over here, but I need to fill that in over here. So I'm going to just ink up those last couple of mountains. Do it again. Just like there, I saw that I had missed a spot. I'm just going to stamp off and scoot this over a little bit. And let's see. There, that worked. And I'm not worried at all about that white showing through, because mountains are going to do that, right? You're going to have peaks, you're going to have valleys, you're going to have some light, you're going to have some dark. I'm going to clean off my stamp, because I'm going to need to put this one away. The next stamp I need the same block for, because it's also a large stamp. So next I have this foreground. And here's where I'm going to start to show you some ink applications using more than one color of ink. I'm actually going to switch this out. I can just flip that over. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing here. Okay, putting the Starry Night away. Now the next two colors I'm actually going to apply to this stamp pad using daubers. And I'm going to move this up here for a minute. And I'm going to use a white background so that I can actually see where I've applied the ink. So I'm going to start with my Mossy Meadow. Make sure I grab the right dauber. And I'm just picking ink up with my dauber, and I'm going to start applying it to my stamp. And you don't have to worry about this ink drying out, because we can reactivate it with a simple huff, otherwise known as warm air. If I just huff from my mouth onto the stamp, that reactivates the ink. So this is going from a tree line into a foreground. In the foreground, I'm imagining that being a meadow full of lupin. Lupin is a flower, an alpine flower. I think it's subalpine, so a little lower. All right. So you can see the tree line there. Then I'm going to grab the Orchid Oasis. And I'm going to apply ink right below that Mossy Meadow. And it's okay with me if the two overlap, because that's going to happen in real life. So you see that beautiful color application going on there? And I'm actually going to be showing you, when it comes to the lupin, how I created some depth and round, oops, put my finger right in it, depth and roundness to the flowers using one color of ink, but again using the sponge dauber. All right, so I'm getting up close and taking a peek and seeing if I've got any bare spots. I don't think I do. I am going to take a second to wipe off that excessive ink off my fingertips because I really don't want this to show up on my card as I'm about to finish it or something like that. See, my hands are already quite dirty. It doesn't have to be this dirty, but I tend to make it a bit dirty. Okay, so now I'm just going to pull this up in front of my mouth and just huff on it to reactivate any ink that's already dried. And you heard me do it 3 times because the, there we go. Because the stamp was so big. So a smaller stamp, you would only huff on it once. All right. Now I see that I've missed one little white spot right there covering it up with the tree line, and I'm actually not too worried about that because I have this arrangement going on right here, and I can, more than likely that's going to be covered. Pulling this up. Oh, I've got more than one. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Let's see. I'm going to think really quick. I can make that look like a lake easily. I can just grab my watercolor pencils. And I have a balmy blue in here, which you heard me hesitate there for a second, only because I don't want to introduce any new colors to this. But I think this is balmy blue. I'm going to come in here and very lightly, if I wanted, I could actually come in with the Mossy Meadow. I have a Mossy Meadows pencil as well, but I'm going to come in and add just a little bit of this balmy blue, which makes it look like there's a lake in there. See, there's no mistakes, there's just opportunities for additional creative crafting, right? All right, looks pretty good. Next up is, okay, so our background is done. Oh, no, I take that back. I need to throw some birds on there. I'm going to use the Starry Night for that. I'm going to set that aside. And the birds are probably the only thing that I didn't pre-mount. All right, I think I have them upside right, so I'm just going to check that on my paper. I do. So I'm going to pick one of these valleys for the first set. And then another set. And then I'm going to do one a little further up. And there we go. That's all I'm going to do for the birds. Set that aside. All right, so now our card back is done. And I can actually go ahead and adhere that. To the mat. And what I've chosen is Starry Sky. And it is 1/8 of an inch bigger than the initial piece of paper. So this is 3 1/8 by 5 1/8. Setting that aside. These two trees were created from Mossy Meadow cardstock, and I did use adhesive sheet on the back when I ran that through the die machine. I've done that ahead of time just to save some time. I do want to show you the creation of the lupin. I did already stamp them and cut them out, but the whole purpose today is for me to show you how I created the depth and the color of the lupin. So I used the Orchid Oasis. I'm going to stamp off because, as you can see, they're very saturated. And then I'm just going to turn around. Oh, no, I'm not. Then, so this is stamped off. Then I'm going to use my dauber and I'm going to apply ink just around the outer edges. The outer edges of the flowers. I'm not worrying about getting it dark. I'm just wanting to create an outline. Can you see that? I'm going to put a little bit more right there. You see that? And I'm going to come in and I'm going to stamp that. And there is another stamp that creates some depth to the front. I'm going to stamp it off, and then I'm going to stamp in the middle of the flower. I'm going to do that 3 times, 1 for each flower. And I want to show you, see, so I've made it a little bit darker, but it's considerably lighter than it was here. So you're getting a lot more depth. I'm going to show you real quick. So I made all of these samples, trying to come up with the right combination. And this is the combination that I finally came up with. This one's a little bit lighter. I'm okay with that. I think it's actually quite lovely. And the lupin are going to stand up like this. Or we have the magic of TV, and I have already cut and die cut these. These die cut in one solid piece. I cut them apart for the sake of stacking. Now, before I put away my Orchid Oasis, I'm going to go ahead. The rest of the card goes together really quickly, but I do have a stamped image on the inside of the card, so I'm just going to very quickly grab my Mossy Meadow for my stems, which I need the same stamp set for, or same block for. Now, lupin do not have leaves like you see on this image. So just be aware of that. And I just don't want anyone quoting me. And I did a pretty good job of not getting it on that third stem. I'm going to keep these super short. Stamped off of the, ooh, I can show you how to fix that. Then, same block again. Going to come in with the Orchid Oasis. I'm just going to use these 2 flowers. Going to wipe off the ink off of that. There's just a little bit on that third flower. Going to do a stamp off. And then line these up. Those actually look very good just like that, but because we know that we do have this center section that we can add on, I'm going to do that. So I've done that. I do have a sand eraser that will take care of this ink right here. So I can just come in, and because I just barely touched the paper, See, it's almost gone already. And you get the idea. Not going to spend your time showing you me erasing. I'm going to close these up and I'm going to assemble this card. So the mat for the inside of the card is 4 by 5 1/4. This piece of paper is 1/8 of an inch smaller. So that would be 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. The card base, oh, there is one more thing to stamp. That's the sentiment on the front of the card. The card base is 4 1/4 by 11. Here it is. And it's a side closure. So I'm going to apply this, or I'm going to set this right here. I'm going to use Starry Night for the sentiment. It says, happiness grows within. And I'm going to kind of square it up and block it right here in the corner. All right. This is ready to adhere. I'm going to glue that straight down. Just like that. Used my green glue because I like the wiggle room, and as you can see, I'm taking advantage of that wiggle room. That looks good. Then I'm going to pull the adhesive sheet off of the back of my trees. The adhesive sheet, basically turn that just straight into a sticker. And I'm not worried about this section being lower than this section up here. That's because of the step up of the cardstock, because it's going to basically be hidden by this lupin. This one, I had a slightly smaller piece of adhesive sheet, and so I just went ahead and used it. There we go, rather than cut into another one. This one I'm just going to shimmy down just a little bit. And I think I'm just going to pull that trunk right off. Man, my hands are dirty. There we go. Just like that. Then here's that lupin I mentioned that I had already taken care of, and I'm going to put some small dimensionals on the back. And kind of offset them just, I'm going to raise them up just a little bit and offset them from the center of that tree. Then I'm going to add some dimensionals to the back of this piece. Now I'm going to leave a little bit of space down here at the bottom because I'm going to do a reverse bow application. pull that right about there. Before I put the bow on, I'm going to go ahead and adhere this inner card, just like that, the inner layer. Now, this bow, let me tell you a little bit about that. I used linen thread, but I didn't want the color of the linen thread, so I used my Stampin' Blend markers to color the linen thread. I've already done that, so you don't have to watch me do that. All right, but what you will have to watch me do is tie a bow. There we go. And I can make that a little smaller, like such. Make that one a little bit bigger. Not a lot. And then I'm going to bring in, set that aside for just a second. I'm going to bring in my Take Your Pick tool. Actually, I should cut these down first because if I'm going to waste snips. All right, cut off the extra off the ends. And now I'm going to fray them. Well, maybe I'm going to fray them. That's my intention. The Stampin' Blends can make it kind of harden your trim a little bit. Let's see if I roll it the other way. There we go. There we go. That's what I needed to do. So it just creates a nice, nice little texture that'll stick out from underneath the lupin. So again, I'm going to roll these reverse of how they're twisted. Take my pick tool in there and pull them apart. Pull the threads apart. And do this one. Come on. This isn't how you wanted to swatch, what you wanted to watch me do. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to stick a mini glue dot to the front of the knot, not to the back of the knot, because I'm actually sticking it to the back side of that front lupin. That. I'm going to come in and I'm going to pull my bow up, kind of there we are. Just like that. So there's the card we just now made. I guess I can shorten these ties just a little bit. Don't need too much. Just a little. And there we go. And you, whoops, And you can come in and keep shredding that thread, which I can't seem to get a hold of while it's, there we go. But anyway, there we are. So there's our cards. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope I've inspired you to try some ink application using multiple methods. I've shown you reverse, I've shown you using dauber, I've shown you stamp off, and I've shown you doing stamp off with a dauber to create depth. So I hope that I've inspired you, and enjoy the rest of this catalog launch party. Thank you so much.